And here we are in the bottom right-hand corner of the map. He is yellow, he is Terran, he is Marine King from Team Prime. His opponent in the top left-hand corner from FXO, blue Zerg player, JKS.
Okay, well, JKS versus Marine King here. And we mentioned before that Ohana is still a go-to map for a lot of Terran players that like playing Bio in TVZ. There's a couple of different reasons. You can pull off some pretty early cheese here that's really really simple. And, okay, yeah, the first Supply Depot SCV is going out. We'll see if another one comes out here in just a second because there's a lot of hidden paths. If you want to go all the way up to your opponent's base, you can also hide them around the right-hand side of the map, a little bit closer towards your own expansions as well, if you want to do some sort of an early 2-racks. Now, if you decide not to go down that path, you have a lot of opportunities to drop through the air, and that's something that players like Marine King and Polt are very fond of.
Yeah.
There's a lot of abusable space on this side, or you can actually make it up there with medevacs even towards the late game that are outside of your opponent's vision.
MKP is just obviously so incredibly good with his utilization of Bio. I mean, one of the things about Bio that, you mentioned Polt, and we saw Polt versus Bomber actually at IPL 5 in this incredible match where Polt showed how effective Marines can be when you split them into small groups. And this is not just a thing. I mean, he used it versus Mech in that series, but it really works versus anything. That's why Marines are awesome. That's why Bio is awesome. It shines in without, it doesn't really need synergy. They're just units that are great by themselves. So, I mean, you run into a player like Marine King, he can make anything happen. And as you said, I mean, Ohana, man, it's a wide map. It's really far from left to right. The Zelnaga towers don't cover things, so you can make a lot of crazy stuff happen. But as it starts here, I mean, we are opening pretty standard.
Yeah, I mean, hatch into pool for JKS. We'll see how long he wants to bypass that gas for. More and more Zerg players, especially the Korean ones, have been going for gas a bit earlier on. It's just so valuable to have those tech options available to you at an early stage in the game. And it's still certainly viable to go for that, 4-queen build or something like that, but it's been falling out of favor as the Terran players have been coming up with more crafty all-in plays at the beginning of games.
Crafty. What do you mean?
Well, Polt specifically took 2 games off of Violet losers bracket finals for IPL 5 with a big Hellion Marauder all-in twice.
Ooh, yeah.
And it was actually economical enough that he had options. So long as he even did a little bit of damage, then he was totally safe.
So it wasn't so much a Marauder Hellion all-in like we may have seen, in the early days of StarCraft 2, but more...
Well, I mean, if you don't do any damage with it, you lose.
Yeah.
Because it's you're setting your tech voluntarily pretty far behind, and there's not a lot of recovery options if you stay on just 2 command centers, especially in this day and age where macro, quote-unquote macro, I guess, Terran players have been going for quick 3 command centers.
It's a great point, though, because we're seeing less and less Spinecrawler utilization out of Zerg, so that really opens up back the option of, Marauder Hellions. I mean, yeah, Queens, okay, they're great now, but the reality is Queens don't do a lot of damage, and, well, Hellions and Marauders, the Hellions kind of complement the Marauders, and like, oh, you can't kill workers, but I can. You can't kill buildings.
And more players are going less into the straight 4-6 Hellion harass, trying to do damage, with the 4-queen build was quite good against, with evolution chambers up at the front, and more into quicker banshees, complementing the attack a little bit. Even some players just moving straight into Marine Tank at the very beginning of the game. So with that option gone, Zerg players can fall back on their gas a little bit more.
Yeah. Which we are seeing that JKS is going to be working on that speed and continuing to mine gas. And in ZVT, that's not entirely standard. You can opt to go for an Evo chamber, which would be dropped down now if he was going for just 1. We could see him wait till about 170 gas. You can drop down 2 at that point, and you'll have enough for your 2 upgrades. But, I mean, hey, things just pretty standard right now. Okay, so he's going to go for the very fast lair here, actually. Does manage to pick off that Zergling after its fancy expansion, but what are your thoughts behind this really, really fast lair off 1 gas and not dropping extractors behind it?
On this map, I really enjoy it, actually, because it's going to give him the flexibility he needs. We're going to see the other gas get dropped on right now.
We saw it, yeah.
Yeah, they're second right now, and imagine 3rd and 4th are going to follow this up. But being able to strike in with just a few, either going into Infestors really quickly or going up into the Mutalisk play with just 4 or 5 of them right at the beginning, does an effective job of pinning your opponent in for a while, especially on this map where that drop play is just so fantastic. So he'll be able to control the map, and this is something that his teammate Lenok was actually quite fond Ohana for a long time and still throws in on a regular basis.
Yeah.
Now we could even see even weirder play too. It could be quick drops, or we could see something like a Nidus play, even though that would be a little less popular, I would imagine.
Well, you mentioned the Mutakev, and I was talking to Sasquatch, and I was like, oh god, I'm having so much trouble right now with this Hellion Banshee combo that these people keep opening with. They use the Banshees to deny my third, the Hellions keep me contained, and then I can't send more drones out to grab it. And he was like, I was like, what do you find works really well against it? And he's just like, two-base Muta. Two-base Muta works so well. He's like, they just die in most cases. Like, unless they rush for Thor and they cut everything else, then they lose. So, I mean, here we are in a situation where that may have been the case, but in fact, we're going to see an Infestation Pit and Burrow being researched. So maybe some very fast Burrowed Infestors heading out across the map.
Could very well be. I mean, that's another strong attack as well. Marine King, though, is not going for the super economical version of this, which means he's going to have a lot more options to defend this back at home. The third base is only coming up now after multiple Banshees are in production, and these Hellions are posed to do a lot of damage. This actually hits at a really nice time. You would think with two bases you would have more defenses prepared, but the fact of the matter is he attacks so aggressively just then that all of these Queens are exposed. All of the resources were being built up towards those Infestors, of which they are going to be completely delayed now.
Yeah, I mean, he's got a couple of units left, but the reality is that he's just already taken a lot of damage, and now he'll have Lings coming out that should be able to clean this up with the amount of creep spread that he's got, which is really, really nice for JKS. But as you said, I mean, he had a tough time holding that. Let's look at the after effects, though, because I mean, we didn't see a lot of economic damage dealt. He killed 2 Queens, which was nice, but overall, yeah, I mean, Marine King, he held that off and didn't sustain any damage to his economy, which is just so, so vital.
Okay, well, Marine King's going to try and duck around with a few Hellions while he occupies the Queens up at the front, but he can't do it. JKS had all of his units prepared in time. And this Banshee, even though it has pretty high DPS, is still going to find it tough to go up against multiple Queens.
Now, it doesn't look like, if we check MKP, yeah, he's going to see this third going down and the timing of it, that it's pretty late. But take a look, he has not seen into the main at all. He has no idea that these Infestors are on the way. And they're going to be popping out in just a second here with Burrow. There's going to be Roaches following it up in order to deal with the massive Hellion count we're seeing on the ground. And MKP will actually, it looks like, be going for mech on this map, which we did not expect. I mean, talking about all that bio, but honestly, it's a pretty good strategy on Ohana, so...
Okay, well, these 3 Queens are actually very low, but now they have transfusions to complement them, so the Banshees aren't going to pose too much more of a threat. In fact, this one's just trying to get away. Total economic damage, 5 workers through all of that. More resources lost now for Marine King in that secondary attack. He lost an additional 700 resources of stuff. His opponent, just 100. Now, of course, he hasn't been able to invest into his economy as well as he would like. Marine King is going to take a little bit earlier third, but it's being delayed by this Overlord here, dropping down some creep.
Yeah,
and look
it
at
is.
This. And there's going to be a burrowed Zergling now right on top of that, too.
Oh, JKS. This is beautiful. I mean, he's got the Overlord on hold position, of course. It's going to continue dropping creep until the day it dies. And now that it is dead, it's going to take a minute for that creep to go away. Only then will MKP realize there's a burrowed Zergling there. He's going to have to bring his units over. He's going to have to drop a scan. What a mess for MKP to start things off. JKS is looking phenomenal right now.
And here come the burrowed Infestors. Those are the only ones on the map. One more just about to pop up, but it doesn't look like he wants to get in too far. Marine King, even though he hasn't seen any of the Infestation Pit or anything like that, he's died to this a few times. He's staying very safe. Missile turret up at the front. He'll have a second one, I would imagine, guarding his third base here in just a bit. But at the same time, JKS has not just taken his third, he's also taken his fourth. We'll need to put gas on those very quickly if he wants to continue into this high-tech play. But for now, he's just following this up with a lot of upgrades and a lot of Roaches.
And you mentioned, Kevin, the missile turret. I mean, at this point, MKP actually knows what JKS went for. Not because, not even now, not because he saw the Burrowed Infestors, but because he went, there's no Mutalisks. You were on 2 base, you had all your gases, there are no Mutalisks, you went Burrowed Infestors. That's the only other thing you're going to opt for in this scenario. So, I mean, Marine King knows exactly what JKS has got available to him right now. He's going to try to force an engagement here.
That was really cool control from Marine King. He actually ducked one of his Banshees back just in time so that the fungal growth would only actually hit one of those. And even though these units have taken quite a bit of damage, that was before the Thors had caught up, and he actually repels that attack pretty convincingly. Doesn't take all that much more damage in return.
Yeah, I was it 1 Infestor?
Yeah, I believe so.
That was all, okay.
Yeah.
So, I mean, some energy for a lot of hit points on the units. Not the units themselves, however. Does get the Banshees pretty low. They're still cloaked, by the way. But the Infestors are just going to be hanging out on the right-hand side as JKS opts to take a very fast 4th base here, which he can definitely do. MKP, I mean, he's not in a position to move out quite yet. He doesn't even have siege tech done.
And here come the infested Terrans onto the high ground. This is what I was looking for, and this is going to be very annoying for Marine King to deal with. He can see this, but if he pulls any units away, look what's coming right down through the front. That's a lot of roaches, and he can't actually deal with this. He loses the armory that was researching +2 weapons, and that's a significant setback, and he has no siege tanks in position to deal with this huge roach force.
So MKP might just die here, guys. The amount of economic damage he's sustaining at his third base while having to push this up. Remember, he lost the armory. He cannot make Thor any longer. Luckily for him, JKS doesn't have a Spire. If he did, this game would be over. But, yeah. All right. But JKS, man, just did an incredible amount of damage.
And here's the worst part is that Marine King didn't know where all these units were. He scanned inside of his base because he thought the infestors had somehow sneaked inside despite this missile turret, but that wasn't the case. They're actually sitting here on the low ground in a fantastic position. And now JKS, he's continuing his creep spread through the middle of the map. He's working off of that 4th base, finally gas going up there too, and really has just established fantastic map control and good presence of mind.
Interestingly, MKP has not restarted his armory. So he won't be able to make any Thor, and we do have a Spire being constructed right now by JKS. Now, he isn't pulling an obnoxious amount of gas or anything, but well, hold that thought. Some infested Terrans going down to the main. Once again, this is going to force MKP to bring units home.
Yep, and at the same time, the Roach is trying to move through the front again, but this time there are siege tanks there, and you can see that that's just mass Roach carnage. Now, this armory is being constructed towards the back, so it's not going to take any damage either, and that actually was a waste of units for JKS. He doesn't get anything done with that.
Yeah, it definitely was. He dropped like 20 supply or so, and a lot of more energy, and I mean, MKP had units in position, but overall, he's going to get these infestors out of here. I think that's a smart call. For all he knows, I mean, he could have Hellions driving down on him right now, so.
Well, JKS expanding to his 5th base on the left-hand side, Hive Tech and Spire. The Hive Tech is a little bit behind Spire. If you start those at the same time, they do finish at the same time. They're both 100-second completion, so you could time really nicely with Greater Spire right afterwards. I like the inclusion of Ravens already. This is not necessarily indicative of that full-on Raven Seeker Missile switch right now, although if this game goes long enough, that's what you would expect to see. This is just for utility. It's detection, it's point defense drones. It offers so much to complement a mech army.
You're completely right. And I need to point this out, Kevin. JKS, every time I've looked at his money, he has none. I mean, 400, 400, this is the highest I've seen it every time I've glimpsed at him, and it might go higher as he's going to be dealing with this engagement for the moment, but he captures one, doesn't get the second Banshee. In fact, but behind this, he's certainly going to make a lot. Well, actually, he's getting ready for those Broodlords, Kevin, as the Hive is now completed.
That was a really good trade for Marine King, though. He only lost 1 Banshee. He killed 2 Infestors and forced 5 Fungal Growths and a bunch of infested Terrans out. That was a perfect trade for him. And at the same time, he's continuing to do damage to these 2 bases. He's forcing these drones to not just killing them, but also turning them into Spore Crawlers and Spine Crawlers. Really cool stuff from Marine King as he's clawing his way back into this. He really needs a 4th base sometime soon, but he's done a good job at stabilizing at the very least.
Oh, he absolutely has. I mean, look at the supply. Earlier, we had 90 to 150, and suddenly we're looking at 170 supply of mech to 170 supply of Roach and Fester, as there are no Broodlords out quite yet on the field. Now, JKS behind this is going for double Spire, continuing with his melee upgrades. He's really going to be investing in a Broods here, and what that means is he cannot lose this army, and Marine King's actually pushing out right now. JKS has to do a counter and force this army to come home, or else try to engage it and crush it. Those are really his only 2 options. Letting this get across the field could prove very, very troublesome for him.
You're exactly right. And on the flip side, if Marine King doesn't do damage here, then Broodlords hit as soon as this is done, and he doesn't have the air infrastructure to deal with that. So he actually has to kill his opponent or do significant damage right here, right now. And he is dealing with the frontline army pretty effectively. There's the counter that we were talking about, but already there are units in position. That's not going to be enough to bring Marine King back.
Yeah, MKP is a very smart player.
Where's he going?
8 Roaches, I mean, that was a pretty confusing counterattack because I just don't feel like that would really do anything. But all right, so JKS now definitely up against the ropes, guys. He's got a ton of money to make hordes of Broodlords. Perhaps it was a move just to throw away some supply. JKS can't afford to sacrifice a base right now.
He's supply blocked. He's supply blocked. He can't make any Broodlords right now. He actually has to have units die before he can make Broodlords. That's a disaster, as he's only making them 1 or 2 at a time. That is going to give Marine King the opportunity to put down some infrastructure into his air and come back and kill this base at the same time. This could not have gone worse for JKS.
I mean, that's... He's still not making Overlords because he can't afford to. He's got 1,100 gas. He's sitting on such a low mineral count. Now he's going to be forced to finally make these because he's just lost even more Overlords, even more of that supply max. But here's the thing, he lost that hatch on the right. We said he could afford to, Kev, because he could take the drones, he could move them to this expansion on the left, but now MKP is going to be moving in on that one.
And I love the fact that Seeker Missile doesn't cost anything. He could actually launch that out here in a second if he wants to. I don't know if it'll just become point defense drones. No, he actually doesn't use it for anything. There are still 2 Broodlords sitting above, and these Thors are actually going to take forever to go through these units, so the Broodlords will be able to sit there and eventually pick away at everything that's on the ground. So Marine King is going to lose this push eventually, but in the meantime, he's done a significant amount of economic damage. He's outright killed a base. He could have actually gone for this base here on the left-hand side. I'm not really sure. Yeah, he has vision of it. The Banshee was there before, and finally he's sending some tanks to try and clear that up.
And we do have Marine King going to take his 4th base on the left, and that's going to put him in a great position against JKS as he's going to clean up these burrowed Zerglings, Roaches, cornucopia of units. But here he is sieging this 4th base on the left, and if JKS loses this, he's got an all-in push on his hands because elsewise he does not have the economy to sustain versus MKP.
And if he had immediately, say, 10 Broodlords ready to go when that fight happened, he would have been doing fine. But because of the supply block, he's just not able to get those out. And this hatchery is just about to fall. 13 hit points, 5 hit points. He saves it right at the very end. Now, any units that make their way up there for Marine King will be able to pick that off very easily. And it looks like these Hellions are doing that right now. But JKS has to save this hatchery.
Bungle. Oh, they're coming in one at a time.
And he still can't get it. 12 hit points, and JKS holds.
All right, so JKS is going to get the extra mineral income from that, which is so important. Some Link's going to be running into the natural during all this for a counterattack. But taking a look at the positions of both of these guys, MKP is getting a lot of anti-air right now. Thors and Vikings. His supply is lower. But if we take a look at the economy of both players right now, MKP bringing in a lot more minerals, but almost half the gas at this time, Kev.
Yeah, and these roaches have actually popped up and killed a lot of workers. In total, 49 workers have gone down, so Marine King's economy has been limited, but because he's dropping down so many mules at a time, he's not that concerned about it. But the problem with this is he's allowed his opponent to get up to 8 Broodlords with a 9th on the way, a good infestor count, and he's reestablished this base on the right-hand side. And Marine King really needs an answer to that quick.
Can we take a look at his natural, at MKP's natural expansion? He's not mining off his refineries.
There we go.
Oh, just noticed. Okay. But yeah, I was like, 480. That's not enough gas for MKP. So now he's going to be bringing more of that in, and we'll be able to continue producing these Thors and Vikings. Gas was a limiting factor. But now he's going to be going for that base. That base is so dead.
Bye-bye. Instantly. A huge Corruptor count here and huge Infestor count. It chain fungles a few of these Vikings off to the left-hand side. And is there enough here to actually combat these Corruptors straight up as the Broodlords are doing massive damage to the army down to the bottom right-hand corner? All the fungal growths are gone, though, so if he can start to win this air war just a little bit, he's actually going to be in a decent spot, but it doesn't look like he can do that, and the Corruptors are forcing this back.
150 to 90 again we are at. This is the second time MKP has been in this position. Last time he was able to strike a comeback, but now JKS is, well, actually on equal basis with him. So, I mean, he could definitely do it again. He just needs a way to deal with these Broodlords.
Well, 3 Vikings are being created at a time. There's 7 in total out. He needs to repair this planetary fortress ASAP. There it goes. So at least it's going to sustain for a little while he tries to get some forces in position. I don't know if there's anything that's actually doing damage. Well, these Hellions have certainly cleared out this base once again, so the economy for JKS is actually quite limited, and the planetary fortress, despite having a lot of worker losses here, has actually held on for quite a while and allowed the rest of the army to actually get in position. The Corruptors are going down one by one. Fungal growths don't hit that many units because Marine King actually had a fantastic split a second ago, but the infested Terrans on the ground are just too much, and this planetary fortress is actually going to fall.
A huge loss there for MKP, who's now down to just 67 supplied against 160. That is almost triple here for JKS, and I think that might be too much. We're going to see there's very few Vikings left and more Corruptors being produced by JKS.
Yeah, I mean, now with these infestors, with the absurd amount of queens behind this to help transfuse these, this is a death push, and I just don't think Marine King's going to hold this. And it looks like FXO is going to go up 2-0 on the back of their starting Zerg player.
It is looking like that's going to be the case here, Kev. There it is.
GG. All right, so game number 2 going to FXO, and fan favorite Marine King is down for the count.
Well, he was definitely a big powerhouse for Team Prime, without a doubt. But, you know, I mean, we still got a lot left there. And Maru, of course, I mean, Maru is like the scariest person in the world for me. I would not, if Maru was out on Halloween, I'd stay inside, man. It's a scary night already. If you added Maru to the mix, oh no.
intimidating at 15 years old.
Well, they're bringing out, man.
Let's hope he's intimidating to JKS. Yeah, because so Mario's being thrown in. All right, he has chosen Entomb Valley as his map. Very large map. Could lead to a very long style of play, too. One thing Maru, much like his teammate Creator, a lot of young players have gotten in the habit of playing very aggressive and stuff like that over the years. But Maru and Creator have kind of led the charge of these young players that can be very patient, too. They can sit back and play that longer game. So we'll see if Maru has what it takes to finally topple this FXO Zerg player. We're going to run to a commercial break, and when we get back, it'll be time for game number 3.